Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. So you think you know your stuff? Get in on our 200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. Bienvenidos, sangrones. Oh, joining us, the patron saint of the Bleed Lows podcast, ladies and gentlemen, Jose Ayala. Denny's here. All right. And joining us as usual, we got Canelo's here. We got Babyface. All right. We're going to get into these topics. I know probably everybody's watching the foosball today because gambling is a thing, as you can say from our sponsor. So we're going to start off. Where do you want to go first, Canelo? Do you want to start with Bobby Miller or do you want to start with Walker Buehler?
Let's go with the fresh Band-Aid wound, and let's go with Bobby Miller, a guy that I've definitely been high on in the past, and it's kind of sad to watch him this season, which it doesn't seem like he's going to get back on track.
I know it pains you. Okay, so the Dodgers ended up splitting the series with the Angelitos, but they did win 3 out of 4 against the Serpientes, so it was a successful road trip. They went 4-2, but look, the Angelitos are in last place. Is it too much for me to ask, Canelo, to have the Dodgers sweep them?
No, I don't think it's too much to ask. I think, similar how I went into the Arizona series, I said, it's a must. Like, you got to win 3 of 4 of these games. The Dodgers ended up taking care of business and playing up to the competition. It always seems like they have an issue playing down to teams under 500. It seems like those teams give them a lot of fits for whatever reason. The first game of the series kind of got me really hype, especially after Mookie Betts hit that home run in extra innings. You kind of said, all right, Bobby Miller's looked really good in back-to-back starts. Let's see what he does against the Angels. And from first pitch in that first inning, he gives up 5 runs, and you're like, all right, well, I guess we're looking forward to them returning home and facing off the Cleveland Guardians. But yeah, I expect them to sweep these series. I expect them to win these series. I expect them to win these types of games against teams that are, like you said, the Angels, they're in last place. They're beneath the cityless, Athletics. They are borderline, like they're on pace, I think, for one of the worst records in franchise history. And, they're
The
extending their
White Sox just said,
GM.
"Hold my beer." The White Sox
Yeah.
just said, "Hold my beer."
Yeah, they're not the White Sox, but they're not having a good season as of late. And, you kind of expect it with the amount of injuries that they've had, losing Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, I don't know. It was disappointing to split the series. I think they split the yearly series too,
Yeah.
2 games apiece. So you expect to, win those types of games. And whatever you think, if it's a rivalry or not, you still want to come away with those wins.
Yeah, like for me, I don't know what's more. I can't say that I'm disappointed with Bobby Miller because we've seen this all year. But the Angels pitcher on Wednesday, Canning, had an ERA close to 5 or at least over 5 to start the game, and for the Dodgers offense to just be completely checked out. And yeah, I get it. This is Major League Baseball. Every now and then, a pitcher can have a great game, but it was just I don't know if there is a letdown if that's what happened there, but really, I guess when Bobby Miller gives up a 5 spot in the first inning, I think this shows signs to the offense. But I know you have a whole article on this, Canelo. But excuse me, what are you seeing with Bobby Miller?
Yeah, I think after this recent start, everybody's kind of starting to analyze, why he is having issues that he has been, because you look at, numbers, velocity looks good. He has really nasty stuff with his pitches, his curveball, slider, sinker, changeup, and his fastball. They all look really good on paper. But if you start looking into it in depth, honestly, Dodgers, they put out a really good breakdown going between his first start of the season and then his most recent start of the season. And I think it comes down to, I think he's just hurt. I think he's pitching injured. I think the Dodgers know that. I think Miller knows that deep down. We heard of a new injury that he's dealing with, which evidently deals with his planting leg, which could be a reason why he has little to no command at all with his left knee. That's a leg that you need to especially put as much pressure as you are. And if anything in your bottom half as a pitcher isn't working, especially something as fragile as a knee, it's not going to be good for your success. And the shoulder thing has been kind of concerning for me because if you guys remember last spring training, he didn't make a single appearance. He missed the entire spring training, went to, the minor leagues, with shoulder inflammation, then comes up, pitches the most innings he has in his career. Obviously doesn't have it in the postseason, has a really electric start in 2024. And then what do we see after back-to-back bad starts? Oh, shoulder inflammation. He misses almost a month and a half on the injured list. And now he comes back. He's still, like I said, the velocity's still there, but, it seems like mechanically he's just not. He kind of is pitching in the way Cody Bellinger was batting when Bellinger was just trying to find a way to play with the injury and play comfortably, but it ended up messing up his entire stance, and then he ended up batting below the Mendoza line. I think that's kind of along the lines Bobby Miller's pitching right now. I think if you're pitching hurt and you just want to stay out there in the field, you're going to tweak some things to say, hey, I don't want to feel pain when I'm throwing a ball right now, so I'm going to maybe shift a little bit to my left or shift a little bit to my right, maybe plant my leg a little bit differently, and it just hasn't worked. The Dodgers said they're going to give him another turn in the rotation because they kind of have to. There's really nobody else they can kind of go to. Landon Knack's getting the spot start on Friday to kick off the series against the Guardians. So Bobby Miller, get you another start. But I think deep down, the best thing to do for him is just to shut him down. I know the Dodgers really aren't in the situation to do that, but I just don't think he has it. He's not going to be on the postseason roster. And if he is hurt, you don't want to make things worse, especially mentally, to say, hey, your mechanics are awful right now. You got to take a whole off season to fix that, get healthy, and come back for 2025. Because even if they don't want to put him on the injury list, this guy still has minor league options. And, we'll get into it when Yamamoto comes back, when Glasnow comes back, they have to make some sort of roster moves. And Bobby Miller would seem like a no-brainer to kind of either demote or just shut down for the rest of the year.
Hey, Babyface, what are you seeing with Bobby Miller?
Yeah, what Cody was touching on. It seems like when he's in that stretch, he doesn't have that command, right? He gives up those home runs, and then what's he do? He comes back, and I believe he struck out the side right after that home run. So it's like when these guys are on base, it's like he kind of just loses his concentration or something. But yeah, I don't know. He looked pretty good in the previous two starts, and then so we're kind of feeling good about him going to this Angel start, and he ends up, giving up those 5 runs in that first inning. Then I believe it was a 6th run in the second inning. So they're down 6-0 early. Like you were mentioning, that's the game I expected them to win. I expected them to sweep that series. But when you're down 6-0, within the first 2 innings, it's kind of a tough hill to climb. So, I put that loss obviously solely on Bobby Miller there, but but also to your point, I wish there would have been a little bit more offense with a guy with a 5 ERA going for him, and that I don't know why that's always seems to be an issue when there's somebody with a 5 or 6 ERA. They're pitching the Dodgers, they become Cy Young, so it's kind of an ongoing thing. So hopefully that's something that gets flipped, within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and another thing with Miller, just before I get your thoughts on it, Juan, the biggest thing that we've seen a lot of people say is that he's just too predictable. If your off-speed stuff isn't landing, they're just going to sit on your fastball. And I feel like most of those home runs, especially in this stretch of games that he's been up in the second half, have all been on the fastball, and they've been pummeled. In his start yesterday, he threw 21 fastballs, maxing out around 98 miles per hour. He had 0 whiffs, 0%. That's the lowest of the season for him, and it kind of showed because it seemed like he just got hit hard all game, and they weren't fooled up there. And that's kind of been, it seems like I've watched a lot of his starts. I saw him in Philly. It didn't look like he was fooling anybody there. Watching it on TV, you're like, they're just sitting up there waiting fastball. And even Adam Wainwright during the Fox game, they said, I think it was Brendan Donovan. He said he's just going to sit fastball here. And what did you know? He sat fastball and hit a home run. So I think that's just an issue with Miller, and that goes with health, command. It's all combined.
I want to get to some comments that Dave Roberts said in his post game after the Bobby Miller thing, because I thought that was kind of telling. But you brought up something that I wanted to address there, Canelo, and the predictability of Bobby Miller. And I wonder if it's twofold, because if you guys were watching the broadcast, Eric Karros was saying it throughout the entire game. Like, bro, what are you doing? Are you not like seeing? Are you not like thinking? You are having success with the changeup. And even Bobby Miller said in his post-game interview, maybe I should have thrown the changeup more. And so, like, Karros is saying that all throughout the game. I'm sure everyone else is seeing this. You said it. They were just sitting on the fastball. But I am curious. I don't know who said this on ESPN LA today. I don't know if it was Travis Rogers or one of the Kamenetsky brothers, but I think they kind of hit on something, and I want to get your opinion on this, Canelo, and that is philosophy. These guys are taught from a very young age to focus on velocity. Velocity, velocity, velocity. That's what's going to get you to the majors. That's what's going to keep you there in the majors. And so, again, I don't know who said it of the two, but they brought up, what if Bobby Miller has this mentality, my off-speed pitches aren't working, my pitches aren't working, so I'm just going to go out there and I'm just going to throw it as hard as I can because I can beat these guys with that. And while he's hitting the corners, these are major league hitters who can hit fastballs. Do you think there's any truth to that philosophy that these guys depend on their velocity? And because you said you can hit 98 miles per hour. I mean, Ben Joyce the other day, what he did was ridiculous. Every pitch was like over. For a minute there, I thought the radar gun was broken, because I was like, there's no way this guy is throwing 104 on every pitch. But Canelo, this idea of my velocity is going to get me through that. Is there any truth to that?
I think there's some truth in a vacuum, and I'll kind of explain that. Another Eric Karros also mentioned, I don't know if it was this year or last season, but it seems like pitchers now, they just try to make every pitch their best pitch, and it doesn't matter, wherever they're at throughout the game. If they threw one pitch at 97, they want to make sure their next pitch is 98, 99, and then continue, maximizing that. And that just hasn't done well for pitchers' health. That's the reason why we're seeing pitchers, at an all-time high. They're either not going deep into games, they're getting injured, shoulder, elbow injuries, forearm injuries, you name it. That's a whole conversation we've had multiple times that's kind of been debated around baseball. But in terms of can you rely on fastball and just get the job done? I think you can if you're a reliever. I definitely think that's kind of where Bobby Miller is trending right now, if he can't figure it out and add, last season he had like 4 or 5 pitches that he could rely on. This season, he really only has 2, and that is including the changeup and then that, fastball. That's, everybody has a fastball. It's a fast fastball. He throws around 99 to 100 miles per hour every time out there. And I even shout out the message in our off-air chat saying, hey, if Miller can figure out a little bit, I would really like to see him in the bullpen, because I feel like he would be a really good weapon there. But if he can't have any type of command, your velocity just doesn't matter. And I think with the way Miller is, their game plan, I was excited to have Austin Barnes catch this game, because I thought we were going to get better game calling behind the plate. But we just didn't see that at all. And, that's kind of been a theme for the Dodgers this season. I don't really like who's calling the sequences for certain batters. I don't know if it's Austin Barnes doing it. I don't know if it's Dave Roberts doing it. I don't know if Will Smith is calling his own game or if the pitchers are doing it. But that's just something you have to clean up before October starts.
You're leading me where I want to go to next. But before we go there, I do just want to address, because Juan Ramos had brought it up in the chat about, this talk about Bobby Miller going into the bullpen. And I know you've been saying this for a while, Canelo, that you think that's probably the best for him is to go into that bullpen. I do not trust Bobby Miller in the bullpen, even if it's just for one inning, because of his control issues. The last thing I want is him coming into a playoff game and he loads the bases. And Babyface has said something happens to him when runners get on base. I don't know if things speed up on him. I don't know if he just beats himself up, but it is concerning to me that he is being considered for, well, we don't even know if he's being considered for the bullpen, right? Because I haven't heard it from anyone. But you mentioned something, and this is where I want to get into Dave Roberts' post game after that Bobby Miller game, and some of the things that Roberts has said. So first of all, Roberts said he was not happy with. He always refers to it as the fingers. And you said it, Canelo. The game that, whether it was Austin Barnes, whoever was calling that game, Roberts was not happy with it, which makes me scratch my head where it's like, all right, bro, you see what's happening. You're the manager. Do you not have a say? Can you not go up to those guys and be like, hey, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, are you guys not paying attention?
Yeah, I don't understand that because anyone that's played the game, your coach can call pitches from the dugout. Couple signs on your head, or at the major league level, just send the damn pitching coach out there, bring them together, say, hey, let's get on the right sequence here. Obviously, each player individually, they have their own scouting sheet. Usually, the pitcher and the catcher for that day will, get together and kind of go on a way to attack. 9 times out of the 10, I would say the pitcher is usually the one winning those battles. But if Austin Barnes has a better plan of attack, he's the league veteran and he's been, with the Dodgers organizations for a long time. I would give him the right to call games. So that's where I don't know. It's kind of like we don't know who makes these decisions. We don't know who makes, the calls. But if Dave Roberts is complaining about it, I don't know why, because you're the manager of the team. If you have issues with it, go out there and talk to them. Like, I just don't understand. I know it's the major leagues, but kind of go back to your little league, route and give some signs to Miller. Go out there, talk to him, try to pass something to Barnes. That's just a weird comment to have post game.
Yeah, I thought so. It stood out for me. The other thing that stood out to me for Dave Roberts in that post game interview, and he's been saying this for a while now. He's been saying, especially when it comes to playing time, that it's about performance. It is about performance. And so clearly, I mean, to me, Bobby Miller seems like two different pitchers. He seems to pitch decently at home, but on the road, I don't know what's going on. Like, it could be everything that you just mentioned, Canelo. It could be physically there's something wrong with him, but it seems that on the road, the wheels are coming off. So when Dave Roberts sits there and says, this is about a performance, this is about performance, and then he says, well, he's going to make his next start because we kind of have to have him make his next start. That to me is what is concerning, because I get it. Hey, go ahead and let Bobby Miller pitch the rest of the regular season, because you guys are making you pitch everybody on 5 days rest. There's no such thing as regular rest with the Dodgers. Nobody goes on 4 days rest anymore. So let's not pretend, just keep Bobby Miller in the rotation for the rest of the season. But what is concerning to me, guys, we are very close to the middle of September. We are going to get into it with the updates that we have on Yamamoto and Glasnow. But Canelo, what happens if we get to the playoffs and what Dave Roberts says is true, in the sense, well, Bobby Miller is going to make a start in the postseason because we don't have anybody else. And we have to throw him out there.
I think at this point, if you're Dave Roberts or you're a Dodgers fan like us, you're just hoping that everything goes fine with Yamamoto coming back and Glasnow at least being serviceable enough to get a game start. I don't know if Glasnow will be brought up enough in terms of ramping up the intensity to pitch in game 1 or game 2 or even game 3 of the postseason. But yeah, I think this start against the Angels kind of sealed the deal that he won't be a part of the playoff roster in any way, unless everything that they have planned goes absolutely, wrong. You're anticipating Yamamoto coming back and being fine. You're anticipating, Glasnow coming back and being serviceable. You got Jack Flaherty. You got Gavin Stone. Once the playoffs roll around, especially the way things work with off days, you really only need 3 starters. If you have a 4th solid starter, that's awesome. And the Dodgers bullpen is the amount of arms they have. They are, in my opinion, probably the best bullpen in terms of depth in the National League. I think that can bode well for them. I'm a lot more confident than I was last year, kind of going into the September and the postseason. While there is two big question marks with Yamamoto and Glasnow, I think they'll be better than what we had last year. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think everybody, even in the comment section, everyone on social media, they know Bobby Miller just doesn't have it this year, and he should not start a game. He should even make a pitch this October.
Babyface, come on in here. I agree with everything that Canelo says. Bobby Miller should not. But I am not confident at all that you're going to see Glasnow in that first round of the playoffs. Yamamoto is going to start next week against the Cachorros. Yamamoto was supposed to go 3 innings in his last rehab start. He only went 2. The plan was for him to go 3 and then throw an extra inning in the bullpen. At best, you can probably hope from Yamamoto against the Cachorros that he goes 3-4 innings, and then the bullpen's going to have to cover the rest of the game. My concern is this: if Yamamoto, something goes wrong with Yamamoto, and you don't have Glasnow, I think what Dave Roberts says is true. You might have to turn to Bobby Miller to pitch in the playoffs because you don't have any other options right now. Knock on wood, everybody. The only starters you can depend on in that rotation are Flaherty and Gavin Stone. That's it. Other than that, everybody is a question mark. So, Babyface, do we need to get used to the idea that as much as everybody says we're not going to see Bobby Miller in the postseason, be ready to see a Bobby Miller appearance?
I mean, you could see him, but I mean, you also have a Landon Knack. I mean, Landon Knack's pretty good. I'd probably go with a Landon Knack over Bobby Miller. If you're,
I agree with you.
Right? If you have to pick one, I'd go with Knack, right? And Knack's going to pitch on Friday, so I mean, we'll see what comes after that. But I mean, they don't necessarily have to pitch Bobby Miller because I think the next time around, you're inserting. They had the off day today, so there's a day off right there, and then you're going to insert Yamamoto in, so they don't have to pitch Bobby Miller next time.
Yeah, but they don't pitch anybody on normal rest. Everybody goes on 5. That's why they push everyone back. That's why, all of a sudden Robleski makes a start, or, there's a spot start in there because they want to give everybody 5 days rest.
Yeah. I mean, right now, like I said, I know Dave Roberts has mentioned kind of this is kind of a trial, I guess, right, to see if they're going to make for him and Walker Buehler, right? This has kind of been their time to showcase what they got. But the race is still tight, right? It's 4 games. It's going to be 4 games because the Padres are winning, so it's going to be 4 games over. But right now, I kind of feel a little bit better. It's 4 games, but I feel better than a month ago, right, when the Dodgers were playing bad and these guys are on their tails because the Dodgers are playing much better. So I think they can still sustain how they're playing going forward. But when you put in a start by Bobby Miller, that's kind of scary, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen in that game, and they could potentially be down early again and then end up losing that game. So it's kind of like, do you really want to risk that? And here's a game that maybe you got to win, and you go with Bobby Miller to start that game, and you end up losing that game. So I don't know if it's worth the risk right now.
Here comes Alonso. Alonso in the chat over here saying Yamamoto is going to be the savior. Juanito, no pasa nada. Man, I wish I had you guys' confidence because all I'm seeing here is a bunch of people falling for the banana in the tailpipe. I really do. Like, everybody's sitting there going, hey, tell the fat lady she's in on 5. They got the division. Hey, Babyface just said it. The show pods are going to be 4 games back. They have a 3-game series coming up with the Doyers. And the Doyers don't have simple series, all right? They got the Guardians. I know the Guardians are not playing well since the All-Star break, but that is a team that is in first place in their division, and they are fighting for their division. The Cachorros all of a sudden are, playing somewhat better. I think it's a little too late. I don't think they're going to make it into the wild card. And then after that, they got to go to Atlanta for 4 games. So look, all I'm saying is this. I see the show pods. They're going to sweep the Tigres of Detroit. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to beat bad teams. When I see the Dodgers go in and lay an egg against the Angelitos, that makes me scratch my head because, like people are saying here in the chat, you can't afford to lose these games. And when I hear Bobby Miller say, well, I just made a couple of mistakes. That's what always seems to happen in a Bobby Miller start this year is he makes one mistake, and that is the difference in the game.
Yeah.
Am I wrong, Canelo?
I definitely agree with that. I mean, if you look at winning percentage-wise, they have the third easiest schedule. But like you said, some of the teams that are thrown in that mix, the Braves are fighting for their lives to make the playoffs. The Guardians are trying to win their division. And then even the games that they have, they have 6 games against a divisional opponent in the Colorado Rockies. You don't know which way those are going to go. The Dodgers should win those games. Then they have a 3-game set out in the East in Miami against the Marlins. Those 9 games right there are the ones that you have to 100% take advantage of. You have to at least, I would say you may have to win. You should try to win at least 8 or 6 of those games and then call it a day. And then that 3-game series against the Padres, I think this Dodgers team knows that they need to, win those types of series because they showed it against Arizona where they kind of Dave Roberts managed those games similarly to how you would manage in the playoffs. He had very short leashes with his relievers, made a lot of pinch hitting appearances against certain relievers on the D-backs. It was a very well-managed series by Roberts and the Dodgers and Torey Lovello and the Padres and the Diamondbacks. And the Padres are going to do the same thing that series. I'm still pretty confident that they're going to win the division. I don't think that's the issue anybody has right here. I think I could say almost all of us think they are still going to win the division because of the games I already mentioned that they have. If they even go split against the teams above 500 and then they win 8 or all 9 of those games against the Rockies and the Marlins, they pretty much get close to 100 wins and win the division easily. It's the postseason, and that's the whole thing. We want to make sure that these players are built up. You want to make sure that these players are healthy. You want to make sure hopefully Glasnow gets a start or 2 before the season's over, but that's even not a certain right now. But yeah, I think looking at the schedule, the clock's working against the Dodgers right now, and I think Dave Roberts has mentioned that. Everybody in the media has mentioned that. Everything else is like offensively, they're fully healthy. They're ready to go. This offense, I'm extremely confident in. We'll see once the page, turns to October if they still stay awake. It's just the pitching right now and the starting rotation in particular where they need Glasnow and Yamamoto to come back and be serviceable because, I mean, if you're asking me who's probably starting game 1, I think it's going to be Yama. I think it's going to be Yamamoto game 1. I think that's why they activated him so soon because it ain't going to be Kershaw. It ain't going to be Glasnow. It could be Flaherty, could be Stone, but I think they're going to go with the $325 million man.
Yeah, I there's just too many question marks. I mean, Kershaw's in a walking boot. Glasnow, I don't think, has he thrown off a mound yet? And we're getting to the middle of September.
This weekend he'll throw off a mound.
And then Yamamoto starts game 1. If you can only get 4 innings out of Yamamoto in a playoff start and you're in game 1 and you're already going to ask the bullpen to cover 5 innings, that is concerning to me. The other thing, and I get that you didn't see a lot of the Dodgers' top pitchers. And then Gavin Stone, after that first inning against the Serpientes, settled down. Jack Flaherty looked good against the Serpientes. But to me, those were softball games over the weekend in Arizona. And that to me is just too many runs. This is a Serpientes team that was missing a quarter of their lineup. And not just a quarter of their lineup. They were missing their all-stars, and they were dropping double digits on the Dodgers. So that to me, hey, Juan, my favorite Dodger right now on the team or overall in the history of the organization is who's my favorite Dodger? Ask your son to clarify. Okay, so now that we're talking about pitchers, we've talked about the Bobby Miller situation. We talked about Glasnow. We talked about Yamamoto. Canelo, are you convincing yourself that Walker Buehler is somewhat fix and can be serviceable? And is that someone that you can turn to and be like, he can give us a start in the playoffs?
Yeah,
Especially if Glasnow doesn't come back for the first round.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of Dodger media heads kind of, go complete 180 on the Buehler thing. I just still ain't sold. And I'm a guy that looks at the numbers and uses his eyes for the eye test. And I will say I am pleased that he is getting more confident, getting some of that swagger back that he had, when he was, pitching successfully. But similar with Bobby Miller, it's just some things with the command I just don't like. I will give him credit saying that most of the time the Dodgers defense behind him just hasn't really played up to par, and it's kind of showed. And usually that's a very cliche thing to say as a starting pitcher, or if you're trying to defend somebody, like, oh, his defense was shit today. And no, it's actually kind of been a recurring theme for the Dodgers in terms of, with Buehler, whether they're not scoring enough for him or they're just playing awful behind him. Infield and outfield defense just isn't doing him any favors, which is kind of weird because the Dodgers have been one of the top defending teams in baseball this season, despite, the constant shuffling of who's going to play shortstop, who's going to play in the outfield and all that nonsense, and the third base carousel they had. But yeah, I'm not sold yet. I need to see another start or two. I need to see a line where he's only allowed like one run, has like maybe five, like at least Bobby Miller's striking dudes out. It seems like Walker Buehler can't do that, and I think that's a big thing that plays in the postseason. If you're asking me if I'm even going to feel confident if he's starting a playoff game, to say if Glasnow is not available, no, I'm not. Like I said last week, I would rather take Glasnow at 60, 70% over anybody else that's being considered, whether that's Walker Buehler, Bobby Miller. I would say even Landon Knack. Like, I want Glasnow out there. I want Yamamoto out there. I want Flaherty and Stone starting those games. I don't think, unless Buehler really shows a huge, improvement over these next couple starts until the end of the regular season, I'm just not sold yet. And I don't know, agree to disagree with everybody else that's kind of changed their minds, but I haven't been sold on it since he's been back from the IL.
Babyface, you were covering the game for Walker Buehler's start. What do you see from Walker Buehler? I mean, he didn't go 6, so I don't think it qualifies as a quality start. But the last 2 starts, I can't believe we're doing this, right? The last 2 starts, he's kept the Dodgers in the game, and I guess that's a win, that he's not pulling up Bobby Miller and giving up 5. But what did you see with Walker Buehler in Anaheim?
Yeah, it was 2 runs, both home runs, so it went 5 innings. It's just the command. I think the command is what he doesn't have exactly yet, but I mean, he says he's feeling more normal than he has to up to this point. So he feels more normal, to what has been. So, I mean, I don't know if he's going to get that postseason start, but maybe he is a guy that comes in, say they start Yamamoto and he goes 4. Then you bring in Buehler for, 2-3 innings. Maybe that's going to be the guy that's going to do something like that. So, I mean, he's going to get more starts. So I want to see what he's going to do. I want to see if he can continue to at least, he can give him 5 or 6 innings where like we said, he keeps them in the game. That's all they're asking for. If they keep them in the game, 2 runs, that's fine, right? 3 runs, that's fine. This offense should be able to cover that. So that's all I'm looking for out of Walker Buehler, right? And hopefully his command does come back. But so far, so good. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I was like, no, I don't want to see Walker Buehler out there because he was just getting lit up. But over that time, he's improved. So that's all you could ask for the next couple of weeks to the playoffs.
And that's the problem that I think the Dodgers are going to have. That's the problem that the Dodgers are going to have to deal with in these next couple of weeks. And that is, what are they going to do with their roster for the playoffs? Because I don't know if you can ask Glasnow to come back in the playoffs at an intensity level that is 120 and ask him to go back to the way you were pitching at the beginning of the year, right? And if Buehler is added to the roster basically to provide innings as a long man, that's taking a spot away from the bullpen. The fact if Yamamoto goes 3, and let's say that you're facing the Show Pods or the Serpientes in that second round, that doesn't give me confidence. We're gonna segue to some other topics here, but I want to address Juan's question because his son asked it, and I'm glad that his son is watching the show. So normally, I'm going to give you a little bit of history, Juan. To me, my favorite Dodgers growing up as a kid, I was a huge Fernando Valenzuela fan, obviously because he was Mexican. He's the reason why I became a Dodger fan was Fernando Valenzuela. But in a very close second to me was Pedro Guerrero. Pedro Guerrero was the man, and I just loved watching him hit. So for me, other than Valenzuela, that was really the only reason. There was an emotional tie. But when I choose who my favorite player is, I base it on who I enjoy watching the most play. And I loved watching Pedro Guerrero hit. So of this current batch of Dodgers, there are a bunch of Dodgers that I admire. Like I admire Federico's professionalism. I love that Federico goes up there and plays every day. I love that he goes opposite field, that the majority of his hits is he's aiming for that. So I love watching that. I love watching Mookie play. And I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, so come at me, guys. But I got to tell you, my favorite player on the Dodgers is Shohei. I love watching that dude. Exactly. I love watching that dude play. And it's not because of the home runs. It's not because of the guy we haven't seen him pitch all year. But to me, the fact that that dude steals bases, the fact that that guy can hit a triple, that takes me back to an era when I watched baseball as a kid. That's what people were doing. Guys like Vince Coleman, guys like the Ricky, those guys were stealing bases, and stealing bases, as you can see, when they do it to the Dodgers, it changes everything when you have a runner on second. It puts pressure on the team. The fact that freaking Shohei hits a ball in the corner and it doesn't even look like he's running fast, and all of a sudden he ends on third. I know Doom, I'm starting to think, Sal, that you got something against the Shohei. Let's not be haters for the sake of being haters. I mean, the guy is a unicorn. I get it. He's not perfect, all right? I mean, we can't have the guy always hit every single time, but we are talking about a guy who has a chance. I'm not going to be like Dontrell, who already said he's got 50-50 in the bag. But for him, if he pulls off 50-50, and we're going to get into this conversation later because it really upset Canelo and Babyface, this whole MVP talk. But for me, it's the base running. That to me is Shohei. That I enjoy watching that. Doom, I know you were kidding. I'm just messing with you. At this point, Canelo, Babyface, do you guys want to chime in on this? Who is your favorite Dodger? I don't have emotional ties to any of these Dodgers because I cover the team. But I base it on, the question is, who's my favorite Dodger? I base it on who I like watching the most play the game.
Yeah, I think kind of growing up, it's, it was always Kershaw. It was kind of like the guy to like the face of the franchise to gravitate towards. I liked Matt Kemp, growing up as well. When I started getting older, that's when he started getting to the end of his career in LA. Had that renaissance in 2018, so that was fun. Loved watching the homegrown talent in Bellinger, but yeah, I think because my favorite player in general, and that's kind of my East Coast bias kind of going here, when he got traded to the Dodgers, ended up being like my idol, and we've had the debates on here. That's Chase Utley. That dude was just hard-nosed. I thought he was a perfect fit for the Dodgers. I thought he did a lot. He meant a lot to the team in his short time there. Obviously, he's a Phillies legend first and foremost, but he made his impact known on the Dodgers, and I think that just shows those are the types of players I like. Maybe not the all-stars, but the guys that come in that are role player veterans that kind of make their presence known that way. And even from when I've covered the team in the short time, you can see it in the clubhouse, especially when these players talk about those veteran presence in the lineup. And it does matter. I do think that's a stat that isn't quantifiable, that should be used more.
Babyface, do you have any favorite current Dodgers?
Yeah, well, like you guys were saying, like kind of the guys that got me here, right? Were like Valenzuela. Like I was growing up in the '80s, and so seeing the infield, the Steve Garveys, the Ron Say, the Davey Lopes, right? Those are the guys that I kind of grew up with. Pedro Guerrero. Those were the guys that when I really started following baseball. Those are the guys that were on the team. So those guys, Steve Sachs, friend of the show, Steve Sachs, one of our favorite dudes, right? Like, seeing those guys, right? And but now, there's guys obviously you respect, you love seeing guys like you said, like Mookie Betts, the way those guys play, Freddie Freeman, just the way they play the game, and and seeing Shohei, like I mentioned this before, like you know when Shohei broke into the league, right? You see this, and you'd hear about him and be like, oh, okay, this guy's pitching, he's hitting, that's awesome, right? No one can do that, right? But we didn't. I like me personally, I wasn't watching the Angel games and kind of seeing what he was doing. I'd only see when he'd play against the Dodgers, and I'd always be the speed is one thing that I always like.
Yeah.
This guy's on first, and then it seems like he takes a couple of steps, he's on second because he has long legs, right? And he kind of just runs like a gazelle, right? Just effortlessly. And so that's something that I've noticed, especially watching him now every day, right? Just the speed, like you mentioned, speed is something crazy, right? I mean, I love to see when a guy, say Shohei leads off the game, he walks, right? He's still second. Mookie doesn't even say he hits a ball to right field, he tags to third, and then Freddie goes and hits a single or whatever, and you got to run. You just manufactured a run. So that's kind of what I love to see, and I want to see them continue to do that. And having guys like Shohei on the team, it's something special, and I think and I love seeing that as well.
So this is going to be a good transition for us because there was some MVP talk, and I don't know who got more pissed. So I'm gonna leave it up to Canelo and Babyface too. But Canelo, do you want to set it up, because I know you're prepared for this? You want to set up what the argument is here?
Yeah, and it's the MVP debate, and it's kind of, I would say it's East Coast media versus West Coast media. It's East Coast baseball fans versus West Coast baseball fans. And I think it's only one small circle of fans that are pushing this narrative, and that is the MVP debate between Shohei Ohtani and Mets shortstop Francisco Lindor. Been a hot topic the past couple of weeks. We've seen a lot of New York media that cover the Mets, whether they're from The Athletic, SNNY, like they are tweeting it, making defensive tweets saying why Ohtani shouldn't win, why Lindor has their votes. But, we're a very statistical show now since I've joined. I've got the stats to back it up. I've sent it to Roger to pull them up. And Roger, let's just pull them up. Pull up the baseball reference.
Why are you going to make Met fan cry? Why are you going to make Met fan cry right now?
Because I have too many Mets fans in my inner circle that need to hear the Canelo reasoning of why. But it's really no debate at all.
Which one do you want? The comparison one, right?
The comparison one. That's the age-old adjective that I've been using. This is Baseball Reference. Obviously, the one thing that most New York media have been using has been F-WAR, which, for those of you who don't know, it's just Fangraphs WAR compared to Baseball Reference WAR. If you look at Ohtani, he leads in Baseball Reference WAR. He leads in hits. He leads in home runs. He leads in RBIs. He leads in stolen bases. He leads in batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, OPS plus. He even made the All-Star team this year, and Francisco Lindor couldn't even do that. Trey Turner ended up getting the nod there after Mookie Betts fractured his hand, and he still wouldn't have gotten the nod there. I get it. Defense is a huge part of the game, but when you're offensively leading in almost pretty much every statistical category, I just don't think there's leeway to go with defense. And I know he plays, Lindor, he ranks in the 99th percentile in outs above average at shortstop, which is phenomenal. I feel like everybody knows Lindor has been one of the best defensive players in baseball since he came into the league. But, like I mentioned before, the biggest defense for Lindor being the MVP is they're using F-WAR. Well, if you look at F-WAR in the American League, do you guys know who's leading in F-WAR? Do you know who's leading in F-WAR 1 in the American League right now?
No, you tell me, sir.
It's Bobby Witt Jr. So by that logic, Bobby Wood Jr. should be the AL MVP over Aaron Judge, who's on pace to hit 60, 65 home runs this season, where almost everybody unanimously across social media believes Aaron Judge is going to be the MVP this year.
Wait, are you saying that Bobby Witt is Francisco Lindor and that Shohei is Aaron Judge? Is that what you're saying?
It's very similar to all different players, but it goes against, like, the big reason is that Ohtani's a DH and he doesn't play defense. Well, it's how much value do you put into defense and how much value do you think Ohtani brings with the historical pace he's on. The 50-50 season, I think that's a huge thing. Him getting on base with his legs. And then when you're out hitting an everyday player by that much, it means something. And another thing I found interesting is that, say Lindor does win MVP, he would be the first NL MVP to have a sub 900 OPS since 2007 when Jimmy Rollins won, where you could even make the argument that Rollins shouldn't have won that year. It should have probably been Matt Holliday. But yeah, I feel like people strive to say, hey, MVP isn't just an offensive award. That's the Hank Aaron Award. What league are you guys watching? The MVP is usually always the best offensive player, and that's how it is across all major league sports. Basketball, it's usually a point guard's winning that MVP or someone that's like scoring the most points. Football, it's usually almost always a quarterback. And in baseball, it's usually always the best offensive player. Obviously, there's some, cracks in that foundation here and there. But I feel like this season, because nobody has hit to Shohei's level while also playing defense, I think it allows somebody like that only hits to finally win an MVP award as just a sole DH. Just like how when Kershaw won his MVP as a pitcher, which is another thing that rifles feathers, nobody else in the league was kind of lighting it up on offense except Stanton, who ended up getting hurt in the final month of the season. So I'm not saying it's going to be unanimous. It's going to be close, but I think at the end of the day, Ohtani is more than likely going to win, and I don't think there's no debate around that.
But Lindor talks to the media supposedly too.
I don't know where that became a stat. That's what people said as well, where they're saying, well, he is the leader of the clubhouse and talks to the media. How do we know Shohei's character when, he's behind closed doors? You don't know that. Obviously, I don't know where we got this thing that Ohtani doesn't like talking to the media, because you guys covered it. Ohtani talks to the media all the time with the Dodgers. They have the whole backdrop.
More with the Angels. He did it back to back in Arizona than in Anaheim. So yeah, I don't know where they get that from.
But yeah, Roger, I'll let you kind of go with your point, but I got all my stuff out. But yeah, I don't know where these other snarky comments like, clubhouse leader and media guy even feel like they're any sort of relevant to this conversation right here.
No, I mean, looking at this chart, right, showing Shohei leads in everything, right? In everything except games played and plate appearances, right? Which by the end of the year, I mean, I don't think he'll catch him in games, but I mean, who cares, right? I mean, he might even have more plate appearances by the end of the year, right? You never know, but I mean, it's ridiculous. If he gets 50-50, I mean, how can you argue that when a player in the history of baseball has never done that, right? 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases. How can you argue against it? And I don't care if he's just DH. I mean, that is such a rare breed, right? I mean, just going back to 40-40, that's such a rare. 6 guys in the history of baseball have done that. So now if you get a guy that does 50-50, I mean, I I don't know if anybody saw, there was a clip of 3 New York guys, right? Heyman, who else was it? Heyman,
Ron Darling, notorious Dodger hater.
I mean, full New York guys just trying to debunk, what Shohei's done and trying to say, yeah, Lindor is this and Lindor is that. Like, I mean, yeah, he's having a good year, but I mean, you can't. And I think they were even trying to go back. They're saying they even made a point of trying to say when other guys snub, trying to make a case for like, oh yeah, these guys were snubbed too, so we can, Shohei could get snubbed this year. So,
and they had to go back all the way to 1941 to show Ted Williams, who led in batting average that year, that he didn't win the MVP. And when you start seeing those types of numbers thrown around, you're like, all right, you guys are really grasping at straws here, trying to find a way. And like I said, usually 9 times out of 10, say if Lindor was even close to most of these numbers, which he's not. I mean, everything. Ohtani has at least 10 or more. And then in terms of decimal points, he's, a couple above them in almost every single category. Ohtani was also in the running for the Triple Crown at one point. Doesn't look like he's going to get that, especially when Trey Turner officially qualifies for the batting title in the next couple games. But yeah, I don't know, because there is value to defense. There is value to being a total player who plays 150 to 162 games a year, plays both sides of the ball, plays elite defense, plays elite shortstop, and hits. I just think, if you look at Lindor's first 2 months of the season, that probably hurt him because his OPS was awful. It was like 500. He wasn't really good. Mets fans had his head, but then they shift into the leadoff spot, like Ron Darling said in that segment on MLB Network, and he kind of just took off from there. And the Mets, they just now are tied with the Atlanta Braves for that final NL wildcard spot. And I do think there is some truth that Ron Darling said, is that Lindor's merit to winning the MVP is very contingent on the Mets making the playoffs, because I think that goes a long way. Because, you take Ohtani off this Dodgers team, albeit they probably would be a little bit worse, but I think they would still be able to make the playoffs. You take Lindor off the Mets, I don't think the Mets are even close to making the playoffs. But, Ohtani joins the Dodgers. They won 100 games last year. They're not even on pace to win 100 games this year. So that argument kind of just blew up in my face right there. But, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, you can have conversations about it.
Are you arguing with yourself now?
I'm arguing with myself. It's Ohtani's award to win, Juan. I don't know how else to say it, but I'm trying to shed light on both sides to say that it's not fair to say that it's guaranteed one or the other. It's open to debate, and I think it's going to be really close. And I know, Juan, you've said it before too. Yeah, this one is Ohtani, 99th in pretty much everything, 100th in hard hit percentage. He doesn't chase too often. He gets a lot of walks, and his sprint speed at 74. Obviously, he doesn't field. And Lindor is kind of right behind him in a lot of these categories, but the stat sheet counting numbers, Ohtani still got him beat. So that's my case for him. I still think he'll win at the end of the year, but say Lindor has a really hot September and the Mets make the playoffs, I think that'll swing a lot of voters.
Look, I get asked this question all the time, and that is, Juan, Ohtani's going to win MVP, right? And I've been saying this. I'm just like, guys, I don't think you can underestimate baseball writers, the people who vote on this award. I won't say hatred, but their strong disdain of the DH. And we're seeing it. We're already seeing this argument being developed here. Every time anybody talks about Francisco Lindor, it always starts with this. This is the first sentence out of everybody's mouth when they're advocating for Lindor to win the MVP. If the Mets make the playoffs. If. So it's all contingent on the Mets making the playoffs. So if the Mets don't make the playoffs, then that means Lindor shouldn't win the MVP. And what, by default, Ohtani wins it? Like, it's not like Ohtani isn't just doing something absolutely ridiculous that we've never seen happen before. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, the eye test. Now, when Cody was arguing with himself, because he just went like total Raising Cain and had a split personality right in front of us, it reminded me of beloved Dodger fans on here. Go ahead, start getting all your lettuce and tomatoes to get ready to throw at me. But I go back to 1988. The way people are talking about Francisco Lindor, that's how people talked about Kirk Gibson. And if you want to look at Darryl Strawberry's numbers in 1988, Strawberry has a very strong argument that MVP was stolen from him in 1988. Strawberry was putting, they're not Shohei numbers, but I think one of the things that you kind of can't, I feel that a lot of people take for granted in baseball is because Shohei is so great, that somehow we can't be impressed by anything. Like everything that Shohei does is expected. And it's like, people, Francisco Lindor is a pretty fast dude. I would expect Francisco Lindor to be stealing bases too. And like Canelo said, he's not even close to the number of stolen bases that Shohei has. Shohei sometimes steals multiple bases during a game. Also, this is a guy, and I know that many people will sit there and go, well, look what he's surrounded by. And it's just like, guys, Mookie has been gone for a while, missed some time. It's like, okay, well, Francisco Lindor doesn't have anybody to protect him. Okay. But again, you keep telling me if the Mets make the playoffs, it is then contention. So if the Mets don't make the playoffs, did Lindor have a bad season? Of course not. Lindor had a great season, but this is something special. What Shohei is doing, we can already say, even if he doesn't get to 50-50, no one has done what Shohei has done. That has to count for something. It's the eye test. We can't be this sabermetric where we're going to completely just go by numbers and ignore the eye test. The eye test to me is what this dude is doing is special. He is hitting balls almost out of the stadium. Okay. Canelo, I don't know. Do you have the numbers? Who has more triples, Lindor or Ohtani? Because I don't think it was on that chart.
I feel like how many triples is Ohtani? Ohtani's had a couple this year, right? Let's look it up.
I feel like he's had more. But it's like, if this is what we are going to go ahead and do.
Tony has 7.
And how many does Lindor have?
I'll look up Lindor.
He's not even showing up yet.
But I'm sure the argument will be, well, Lindor plays defense, so that
Lindor's
slows
got
him down.
one.
Lindor's got one. Okay, thank you very much for that. Hey, MLB Network, anytime you need someone to talk reasonably to you. I mean, I also think the MVP should go to the best player. You know, just the way like that. Look, I love Bobby Witt. I think Bobby Witt's a great player to watch. But you cannot ignore what Aaron Judge is doing. Like, Aaron Judge may hit another 60 home runs this year. I mean, you can sit here and argue all you want about Bobby Witt and what he's doing for the Royals, but you're going to do that seriously and tell me that you're going to give the award over Aaron Judge?
And that's why I bring up the point where if you look at most Mets fans' argument, especially on the media, they bring up F-WAR, F-WAR, F-WAR. And Bobby Witt leads all of Major League Baseball in F-WAR. And you're going to say he's going to win the MVP over Aaron Judge, which just seems laughable because, like I said, I think everybody across the sport believes Judge is going to win the MVP, probably near unanimous in terms of the voting, where in the case of the National League, like everything, the division races, the wild card races, it's going to be pretty close. I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of the closest MVP finishes in a long time. And we thought last year was going to finish close, and I think didn't Acuna win unanimously, I believe, with first place votes. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, I think at the end of the year, Ohtani will probably be the MVP, and it's going to rifle some feathers the wrong way just because of him only being a DH.
Breaking news, Juan.
Yes.
Suarez
the Tigers down to their last strike. Grand slam. 4-3 in the 9th, and then they end up closing it out. So Dodgers are back up to 5.
Thank you very much, Detroit. We love you. We love Detroit. All right. Wow. Somebody check on Borna. Hey, you want to go ahead and send him a tweet saying chills? See if he responds. That moment was chills. Look, I am very concerned that Shohei may lose the MVP because of this argument. I feel even if he gets to 50-50, it's going to be close. The vote is going to be close because you're going to have those myopic haters, the Bill Conlins of the world, who will sit there and say, Nolan Ryan is not a Hall of Famer because I wouldn't want him pitching Game 7 of my World Series. No, the guy just has 7 no-hitters. I don't want that chump out there on the mound. It's the eye test, people. Come on. We can't ignore what Shohei is doing is ridiculous. Everybody expects him to do it, and he still does it. And I don't know that many athletes that can do that.
And I think him winning MVP is kind of contingent on him getting 50-50. I think if he doesn't get 50-50, I don't think he's going to win. I just feel like the voters are going to be like, nothing historic happened. Lindor plays defense.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing historic. He's he's top 2 in stolen base and home runs. Last person that did that was, I think, like in the 40s, right? Like Ty Cobb or somebody, right? Like, and they had like 9 home runs. That was like their.
They're gonna give me an argument that Marcell Ozuna deserves to win instead. So.
Yeah. And if he wins the Triple Crown,
weren't they saying that months ago? Ozuna's gonna get it. Ozuna's gonna get it, right? And
look, I think Doom Sal, you have a very good question there, and unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever be able to answer it. But here's Sal's question: if Mookie didn't get hurt, would Betts be considered for MVP over Ohtani? And that's a hell of a question, Sal, because what I think is crazy is this, and that is I feel Shohei, especially with the stolen bases, started turning it on when he moved into the leadoff spot. And it was at the time that Mookie got hurt. And I wonder if Ohtani had that kind of drive, if he was hitting from the leadoff spot since the beginning. I know someone had said if you take the pace that Ohtani was stealing bases from when Mookie got hurt and you spread it over a whole season, Ohtani steals 90 bases. I mean, that's insane, guys. We haven't, I can't remember the last guy other than the Ricky or Vince Coleman who stole 90 bases in a season. But yeah, I think Doom, to be honest, I want to, and Canelo come in here. If Mookie doesn't get hurt, I do think Mookie leads the MVP race, and solely because he was playing shortstop.
Yeah, I think I've kind of made that argument known, where I think before Betts was injured, he was on pace. He was the favorite from pretty much all, betting websites that he was going to win the MVP. Last season, he came really close. This season, he had a little bit more of an edge playing shortstop. That's the huge thing, is that if you're playing a premier position like shortstop, and for the most part, in the beginning of the season, he was really above league average at the position, and he was hitting... offensively, he was the best shortstop in all of baseball, and if you put him back there, he's still the best offensive shortstop in all of baseball. Defensively, it was where it became an issue, and I do agree. I think Ohtani shifting to the leadoff spot changed the complexion of the lineup entirely. And I even wrote an article about this, with Betts coming back, to the Dodgers lineup and batting in the 2-hole. I think it's kind of amplified the best of Betts' game and the best of Ohtani's game, where Ohtani, his stats with runners in scoring position and all that stuff, that's also been brought up as well. They're not good. Carlos has been very hypercritical. He's the only one Shohei Ohtani fans that has been hypercritical about him, about that stat. But Mookie Betts, on the other hand, when runners are on 2 outs, runners in scoring position at all, that dude hits. He's like top 3 in the National League, minimum 90 at bats with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. He's got an OPS over 1 with runners in scoring position. Dude, throughout his entire career, has been clutch in those situations, which is why I thought from the get-go, shifting him from the 1 to the 2-hole with Ohtani potentially getting on base, stealing a base, getting a double, getting the third, however you want to concoct it, Betts gives you the better opportunity to win. And I don't think if Betts never gets hurt, I don't think they ever make that switch. You only make that switch because Betts got hurt, Ohtani fills in the void, and then you kind of open your eyes on the playbook here. But I don't know. I feel like we don't know what the season would have held for Betts, because, he was well on his way to hitting 40 home runs. He was stealing more bases than he has been in years past. I mean, I think he almost has 20 this season, and he missed a good chunk of the year. And I don't know. And playing shortstop, that would have probably given him some pointers as well, where you're saying, oh, he moves all around the diamond, and now he's a shortstop, and he's going to win a batting title, and like all this other thing. So, and I'm a big Mookie Betts fan. I've said that I know the talent Ohtani is, but I think at the end of the day, Betts is the most important player on the team. And since he's came back, he's kind of proved that. But would he have been the best player on the team? Which is, like you said, that's who should be winning MVP, and it should be Ohtani. So it would have been close, though, but it kind of would have been a situation like last year where they probably take votes away from each other, like how Freeman and Betts did.
And then Lindor wins.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Hey, Babyface, real quick, because I want to end the show on a Mookie Betts thing. What are your thoughts on this? If Mookie would have stayed healthy,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it just would have been tough, right? I mean, if Shohei continues to doing what he was doing, still has the type of season he has, and then Mookie's playing shortstop and continue playing, yeah, maybe they do kind of split the vote right there, and somebody else comes in and kind of and takes it, but it would have been tough. I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know. I still think Shohei would probably take it, just for what he's doing, because we've never seen what Shohei Ohtani is doing in baseball. I think you'd probably still take it.
All right, I want to end the show on this, and that on the now that we're bringing up Mookie, because I think Canelo has a very strong point where that dude is clutch. One of the moments I think I probably have enjoyed this season was what happened in Game 1 against the Angelitos after they walk Ohtani, and on the first pitch, Mookie hits that home run, and not only was it hitting the home run, but it was Mookie's reaction. Because we all read the subtext there. We all read the subtext where, oh, you're going to walk Ohtani to pitch to me? All right, well, here you go. And I heard this a lot. I saw a lot of comments about this. A lot of people saying, I haven't seen that Mookie that fired up since 2020. Probably when Mookie made that catch against the Bravos up against the wall. If this is motivation, because you always say great players, they're, I can see the meme already coming of Mookie going, and I took it personal. It's the Michael Jordan. It's coming. If that's what needs to happen in order for Mookie to take it to another level in the postseason, I think that is a very good sign for the Dodgers. If Mookie goes nuts, and I know Canelo's made this argument, it may be, Shohei gets all the attention, but it's really Mookie is the one who drives this team. But I personally am rooting for Shohei to go nuts in the postseason. The fact that he's never been to the postseason, the season he's had, all the accolades, like this guy has won all the individual accolades. The only thing he's got left, if he does 50-50, he just needs to win the Cy Young. And then what are you going to do? Like, I mean, this guy will have had every individual trophy. So to have a moment where he just goes through the playoffs and turns into Corey Seager or just goes absolutely nuts, that to me would be fun to watch. But if you don't pitch to Shohei and Mookie makes you pay all this time, that's going to be fun to watch. Canelo, what were your thoughts on that? Am I making too much of that moment with Mookie after he hit that home run against the Angelitos?
No, and I think you're 100% correct. Everybody on social media, everybody that was watching the game saw his reaction rounding the bases, kind of like saying, you want to walk him? Okay. You paid the price. I just deposited one into the left field deck. And now I'm on my way, hitting a 3-run home run. And he looked really, really excited. It was the most, emotion you've seen from Betts in quite some time. He doesn't really show them too much. Most, perennial all-stars don't. They know how to channel their emotions. But, yeah, I think he felt some type of way. You walk one MVP, you got to face another. That's the mentality I want this Dodgers team to have in the postseason, where if Ohtani wants to put on a show, I want the guy right behind him to put on an even better show, and then vice versa. You keep going down the lineup. We haven't seen the trio of, Dodger hitters do damage in the postseason. 2022, when they had the trio of Freeman, Betts, and Trey Turner, didn't work. Last season with, Betts and Freeman having their, one of their career years each, it didn't work then as well. You're hoping the third time's a charm, and hopefully Ohtani can kind of set the, the trend there and get Betts back on track. But yeah, it's kind of what I've argued already. Betts is the glue to this Dodgers lineup. With him being back, I think we've been talking about it a little bit. I think he feels some type of way that Shohei Ohtani has all the spotlight. When he got traded here.
Yeah, I don't think he's subtle about that. All those passive-aggressive quotes that he's been making all season.
Yeah, Betts feels some type of way, but it's a professional way. Obviously, they're probably good in the clubhouse. They're probably, they're friends, they're teammates, they're perennial all-stars. They understand that the end goal is to win the World Series. But, Betts gets traded here in 2020, instantly kind of becomes his team. He had to earn it. They win the World Series. Marketing is all over Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts in Los Angeles. He's basically started a multimedia organization over here. Like, he's doing everything to promote the Dodgers and himself and his own brand. Then a little guy named, well, not a little guy, Shohei Ohtani comes into the fold. That dude's got an international brand. Everybody in baseball has his eyes on him. And I think Mookie Betts is saying, all right, well, the only way that they're going to get their eyes back on me is if I, show up in the moment and get great hits. And I think that's why he got off to the start he did to begin the season. And I think that's why he's continued it since he's came back from the All-Star break or after the second half getting activated, taking everything in stride, hitting in the 2-hole. All right, I got it. I'm going to make the most of the opportunity. Going back to right field. All right, I gave shortstop a try, but I'm going to go back to the position where I have, 6 gold gloves? Let's go. And like I said in all my articles recently, looking into the postseason, offensively, I have no issues with the Dodgers right now. It's what we talked about at the beginning of the episode. The starting pitching is the big Achilles heel right now. It was the Achilles heel last postseason. Dodgers offense has to still show up, and I'm pretty confident with the way the trio is playing right now.
So, I mean, to me, that reaction, it felt like there was an edge with Mookie there. And I know a lot of times that's what a lot of people has been saying has been missing from this team is this team has no edge. This team, for you stand and deliver fans, they have no ganas, no tienen ganas. I saw this picture on Twitter, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who posted this, but it could be, I think it is a good comparison, and that is that Shohei and Mookie could be Shaq and Kobe. And they made each other better. And I think it speaks to what you just said, Canelo. I would love for Mookie to have that Mamba mentality where it's just like going to Shaq and being like, this ain't your team, MFer. You got to put in the work. And I would love for Mookie to be like, okay, Shohei, this is your team. But in the end, whoever puts on the show in the playoffs, that's who everyone's going to sit here and say, they won the World Series. Yeah, he got all the attention, but that's the dude who won the World Series. And back in 2020, isn't that how people talk about Corey Seager? The team won the World Series, but everybody says it was Corey Seager who won them that World Series. It was Corey Seager getting hot and going nuts. That's what I want to see, whether it's Mookie or it's Shohei. If we're talking at the end of the season that these guys are having Corey Seager moments, then it's going to be all good for the Dodgers. There, I'm positive. Are you guys happy now? You guys all call me the Prince of Darkness. I'm not a monster. Babyface, you want to comment? You want to say anything before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I mean that when they walk Shohei, I mean, you got to think that those situations are going to come up more, especially in the playoffs, right? When they're trying to get an out, they're probably going to walk Shohei to get to Mookie. Because
Eric Karros was saying it's the right move. It's the right move.
Yeah, it was definitely right. I went back because I didn't know if Washington had said anything, and I just heard his post game, and he said he walked him because he was hoping that Mookie would hit into a ground ball, get that double play. But he also said he wouldn't have slept right if Ohtani would have done. Now imagine Ohtani on his return goes. This is, I think, another factor why he goes and he beats them on his return. There's no way they were going to have that. That's why they elected to walk, Shohei and go to Mookie. So, but I mean, I definitely think it's something that some teams are going to try in the playoffs, and you only hope that Mookie's going to see that. Say, I'm going to make you pay now.
Yeah, I think it was the right move watching the game, righty on righty. You want to get that matchup. You don't want Ohtani to beat you righty lefty. Most of the time Ohtani definitely is one for the theatrics. He's definitely looking to deposit one and win the game for the Dodgers in this, especially after, all the media attention that, especially in California that this game got. But yeah, it's definitely a situation that's going to come in the playoffs because it's going to be like, all right, pick your poison. we got a situation here, extra innings, game on the line, or somewhere along the line. Do you pitch to Ohtani? Do you pitch to Betts? Or do you pitch to Freeman? It's something that we talked about in back-to-back seasons, but teams in the postseason still found a way to get around it. And I just think it was a really bad pitch by that Angels pitcher. It was the slider that pretty much
there
hit
is
home
that.
middle.
There is that too, Canelo. It was a bad. Hey, Roy, I know what you're talking about. Mookie was a big part of that 2020 World Series. And that's the kind of debate that I hope we have at the end of the season, where we have this debate of who was more instrumental in winning that World Series. Was it Mookie or was it Seager? I hope we're having that debate at the end of this year between who was more instrumental, Shohei, or was it Mookie, or was it Federico? I mean, we know what Geeke does in the postseason. All of a sudden, he turns into a different guy. It's just I don't know if we had that last year, but I do feel like this is a new element at what Canelo was talking about. It seems that on this team, especially maybe with the new acquisitions, I don't know if it's because everybody is fighting for playing time, but it does feel like these guys are pushing one another. And maybe it is, competitive. But I mean, at this point, I think it's good. And the fact that Detroit came back here and helped us out, because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Babyface, is the magic number now 17 for the Doyers with the show pods lost?
17.
So there we go. I mean, the clock, not only is the clock against the Doyers, the clock now is going to start to be a factor for the rest of the teams in that division. But so that's going to do it for this episode. I haven't forgotten. I know Doom Sal already put his nomination. Now is the time where we put in our nominees for the Danny Duffy Award. For any new people that are on here who are not familiar with the Danny Duffy Award, the Danny Duffy Award is given to the person who catches the most unsuspecting strays on the show, whether they're warranted or unwarranted. So I'm going to take some time right now to get some nominations in. Doom Sal has nominated Bobby Miller for the Danny Duffy Award. If anybody else has any more nominees for the Danny Duffy Award, now is your time. I'm going to give you guys a minute to put in your nominees, okay? Or forever hold your peace. Jose Ayala, the patron saint of the Bleed Lows podcast with Bobby Miller. So Bobby Miller has 2 votes. You may save us some time with voting, guys, because if Bobby Miller's the only nominee, he wins by default. Roy Estrada has Bobby Miller on here. Just an option with the Ohtani gold bobblehead. Okay. Simeon with Bobby Miller again. All right. 30 seconds, guys. Put in your nominations. Juan Ramos is going with Bobby Miller. Look, if this becomes too one-sided, we may just call it. I may be just like telling Rocky Balboa, drop the towel, man. Drop the towel. Okay, 15 more seconds. Any more nominees for the Danny Duffy Award? 10 seconds. Because it looks like
they're hurting the value of this card. Come on, guys.
Bobby,
come on.
Oh,
you guys are hurting my personal collection.
All right, that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Considering it was overwhelming nominations and just an option, I'm sorry, the Ohtani Gold bobblehead it didn't warrant enough for a vote. The winner, I think this is the first time he wins. Congratulations to Bobby Miller for winning the Danny Duffy Award on tonight's show. So that's going to do it for tonight. We want to thank you guys for joining us. We love you, loyal sangrones that come and support the show. Dennis, you were in too late on that one. But Canelo, before we sign off, anything you want to promote from the Dodgers Beat website? Guys, make sure you're reading all the stuff. Canelo and a bunch of the writers. I know Doom Sal has some write-ups too. I think Doom Sal wrote something about Yamamoto on there too. Canelo, anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, no, the most recent Dodger analysis article I have is the one on Betts, kind of going over, his return since the second half, kind of how it transformed the Dodgers lineup, all that stuff that we kind of talked about today. Definitely got some more Dodger note stuff coming around. I know Doom Sal's got some more Yamamoto pieces coming out, and obviously we have post-game recaps every time, but, we're getting closer to the postseason, so we're kind of going to start seeing our our playing field soon, so we're gonna start looking into that. But yeah, so definitely keep checking out the website.
All right, that's going to do it for this show. Make sure if you guys are coming across us for the very first time, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. This episode has been brought to you. One more thing before I go. Good night, Detroit. We love you. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. Chills.